If you're a U.S. worker thinking about your career, especially with all this tech change happening and this whole generative AI thing popping up, well, you're definitely in the right place.
Yeah, it's a big topic. People are wondering, what does it really mean for my job?
Exactly. So that's what we're digging into today.
We're looking at a really insightful report from Brookings. It's called Generative AI, the American Worker, and the Future of Work.
And our mission today, it's pretty simple, really. We want to cut through the hype and understand what generative AI actually is.
Right, and how it might shake things up in the job market.
Mm.
The good stuff and maybe
Yeah.
the not so good stuff.
And hopefully give you some real concrete ideas on how to, well, navigate all of this change.
Based on what the research is telling us.
Exactly. We know you're busy. You want clear info, not a ton of jargon. So we'll break down the key bits from this report. Clearly, usefully, might even be a little surprising.
Okay, sounds good. Where should we start?
Let's start right at the beginning. When we say generative AI, what are we actually talking about?
Okay, so think of it like this. Most AI we've known sort of analyzes information that already exists,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, finds patterns or makes predictions based on data.
Exactly. Generative AI, though, it goes a step further. It can actually create new stuff.
Create, like what kind of stuff?
Well, it could be text that sounds totally human written, or a brand new image you've never seen, music, even video or lines of computer code. It's about generating something original.
Huh. So it's not just crunching numbers, it's actually outputting new content. How does it manage that? These large language models keep coming up.
Right, LLMs. They're key here.
Yeah.
Large language models. Imagine an AI trained on just a massive, massive amount of text and data, like almost everything on the internet, books, articles.
Okay. Huge library.
Yeah, huge. And by processing all that, the LLM starts to figure out the statistical patterns, how words and phrases usually fit together,
Ah, so it learns the rules of language by example.
pretty much. Then it uses those learned patterns to predict what word or pixel or sound should come next. That lets it generate whole new sentences, paragraphs, even essays or scripts that fit the context you give it.
It's kind of like a super advanced autocomplete then, but one that can write a whole article.
That's a pretty good way to think about it, yeah. And it learns incredibly complex patterns.
Okay. I get the text part, but you said it can do other things too. The report mentioned visuals and video.
Absolutely. So natural language, like with ChatGPT 3.5, the report notes its adoption was incredibly fast, which shows how quickly this stuff is spreading. That's a big piece.
Right.
But generative AI also works with images. Tools like DALL-E 3 or Midjourney, they can create really quite striking visuals just from a text description you type in.
I've seen some of those. They're amazing.
Yeah, and it's moving fast into video too. Things like Sora creating video from text prompts. So we're talking AI that can handle different types of media text, images, audio, video, and even start combining them.
Okay, so it's creative, it's versatile, and it's spreading fast. Now, the report made a really key point about how this AI is different from, the automation we've seen before. What's the big difference for workers?
Yeah, this is really crucial because traditionally when we talked about automation, we mostly thought about routine, often physical blue-collar work.
Like assembly lines or basic data entry, repetitive stuff.
Exactly. Predictable tasks.
Yeah.
Generative AI is different because it's starting to handle what the report calls cognitive and non-routine tasks.
Cognitive, like thinking, and non-routine, meaning not repetitive.
Right. Things that require, well, reasoning, judgment, understand context, creativity skills we usually associate with human thinking, not just physical actions.
So the kind of tasks we maybe thought were safe from automation, can you give some examples from the report?
Sure. The report mentions things like writing computer code, making predictions based on complex data, drafting reports or marketing copy,
Okay.
even generating creative ideas, communicating complex information, doing sophisticated analysis. These are skills often found in white-collar jobs, jobs that usually need higher education and, frankly, pay more.
Wow. So fields we thought were pretty insulated from automation are now potentially exposed.
That's the implication. It's a significant shift. The reach of automation is potentially much broader now, touching professions that weren't really on the radar before.
That really does change the conversation. So if we look at the overall potential impact on U.S. jobs, what kind of scale are we talking about? The Brookings analysis had some numbers, right?
They did, and they're quite striking. Based on their analysis using OpenAI data, they estimate that over 30% of all U.S. workers could see at least 50% of their job tasks significantly impacted or changed by generative AI.
30% seeing half their tasks change. That's substantial.
It is, and it goes further.
Yeah.
They estimate around 85% of workers could see at least 10% of their tasks affected in some way. So the reach is potentially very wide, even if the depth varies.
85% seeing at least some impact. Okay, so which parts of the economy are looking at the biggest exposure here? It's not just manufacturing anymore, clearly.
No, definitely not. The report highlights sectors that, maybe counterintuitively, often rely on highly skilled workers. We're talking STEM field, science, tech, engineering, math,
Okay.
also business and finance, architecture and engineering, even law. These high-skill, often high-wage sectors show significant exposure.
And didn't it also mention office support?
Yes, interestingly, office and administrative support roles also rank high in terms of potential impact, which is maybe less surprising, but still significant given the number of people in those jobs.
It feels like it flips the script, doesn't it?
Hmm.
Higher paying knowledge work being so exposed compared to the traditional focus on blue collar jobs. Why are these sectors so susceptible?
Well, it really comes back to that point about cognitive and non-routine tasks. These sectors, STEM, finance, law, admin, they rely heavily on exactly the kinds of tasks generative AI is getting good at. Things like analyzing data, generating reports, writing code, drafting documents, creating designs.
The core functions of many of those jobs.
Exactly. So the AI's ability to perform, or at least assist with, these specific cognitive tasks is what puts these industries right in the line of sight for potential change. It really challenges our old assumptions about automation.
Okay, let's make this more concrete. Can we look at some specific job examples? You mentioned office and admin support. What kind of roles are we talking about, and what might the impact look like there?
Yeah, that's a big sector, almost 19 million workers.
Yeah.
And the report does suggest significant potential for automation. It flags roles like bookkeepers, legal secretaries, HR assistants, bank tellers, payroll clerks.
Okay, common roles.
Very common. And while tech has been changing these jobs for a while, generative AI could really speed things up, automating tasks like data entry, yes, but also scheduling, writing routine emails or letters, maybe using some basic financial summaries.
So potentially automating chunks of those jobs.
Potentially, yes. And the report makes an important point. A large share of workers in this sector are women. So any disruption could have a disproportionate gender impact. We need to watch that.
That's a really critical point to remember. What about other areas, like education? How might AI change things for teachers?
For teachers, the report suggests generative AI could be a real time saver for certain tasks. Think grading, lesson planning assistance, generating report card comments, maybe creating practice material.
So offloading some of the admin burden.
Possibly. But it also stresses that the core person-to-person parts of teaching, classroom interaction, mentoring, managing student needs, that kind of thing, those are much less likely to be affected directly by the AI itself.
So more like augmentation, helping teachers do their jobs rather than replacing them.
That seems to be the leaning, yes. More augmentation potential in that kind of interactive role.
Makes sense. The human touch is pretty central there. What about healthcare? Registered nurses were mentioned? Similar story.
Kind of similar, yes. For RNs, AI might help analyze patient data faster, keep records up to date more efficiently, maybe even flag potential issues based on test results or medical literature.
So helping with the information side of things.
Right. But the hands-on patient care, giving meds, physical assessments, emotional support, the direct care aspect, that's expected to see minimal impact from this type of AI.
Again, augmentation more than automation for the core role.
It seems that way for roles with heavy person-to-person interaction. Though, as we said, those higher-paying fields, STEM, finance, law, engineering, they also face potentially big shifts, likely a mix of augmentation and automation depending on the specific tasks.
Okay, so we're seeing this potential for really widespread changes, touching all sorts of jobs and pay levels. Let's talk about the upsides and downsides for workers. What are the potential positives?
Well, on the plus side, generative AI could genuinely augment our skills, like having a superpowered assistant. It could take over tedious or time-consuming tasks, freeing us up to focus on more complex, strategic, or creative work. It could boost productivity, help brainstorm new ideas, improve efficiency, maybe even make certain tasks more accurate.
So making us better or faster at parts of our jobs, that sounds appealing.
It definitely can be.
But what about the flip side? The fear that keeps coming up is job loss, right? Displacement.
And that's a very real concern, absolutely. The major potential negative is employers using AI not just to help workers, but to automate tasks or even whole jobs out of existence.
Leading to layoffs.
Leading to potential layoffs, yeah, or reduced demand for certain skills, putting downward pressure on wages. The report also flags other worries, like copyright and consent issues, especially for creative workers. Is their work being used to train AI without permission or payment?
That's a big one in creative fields.
Huge. And there's also the concern about increased employee monitoring and surveillance as AI tools get embedded deeper into how we work.
More tracking of productivity or activity.
Potentially, yes. These are all serious downsides to consider.
It really feels like we're just scratching the surface, and there's so much we still don't know for sure. The report mentioned some of these big open questions, didn't it?
It did. The long-term picture is definitely still fuzzy. I mean, a fundamental question is, will generative AI mostly augment human labor, making us more capable, or will it primarily automate tasks, leading to significant job displacement?
Augmentation versus automation, the big question.
That's kind of the core tension. And we also don't really know yet which specific workers within these exposed fields are most likely to benefit and who might be negatively affected. It probably won't be uniform.
And what about inequality? That's always a concern with big economic
That's
shifts.
absolutely critical. How will all this affect existing gaps in income, wealth? What about impacts based on gender, race, education level, even geography? Will it make things worse, or could it possibly level the playing field in some ways? We just don't know yet.
Lots of unknowns there.
And beyond just jobs being lost, the report asks, how else might AI harm workers? Could it lead to, say, de-skilling, where jobs become less complex and engaging, or just increase workplace pressure and surveillance? These are all open questions.
Really crucial things to track. So, okay, we have this powerful tech, lots of potential changes, lots of uncertainty. What can workers actually do? What advice does the Brookings report offer for people trying to navigate this?
The report really hits hard on the need for continuous learning and upskilling. Basically, don't stand still.
Keep learning new things. Like what?
Focus on developing skills that AI doesn't do well, skills that complement AI, or skills that are uniquely human. Things like critical thinking, complex problem solving, emotional intelligence, creativity, especially novel creativity, not just pattern generation.
So lean into the human element, the stuff machines struggle with.
Exactly. It's also super important, the report says, to just stay informed. Keep tabs on AI advancements, especially how they might affect your specific industry or your role. Understand the tools being used or developed in your field.
Knowledge is power, basically.
It really is here.
Ah.
And the report also mentions the importance of worker voice, finding ways for employees to have a say in how AI is actually implemented in their workplaces.
Whether through unions or other forms of collective action.
Potentially, yes,
Right.
having some input into the process. And finally, a very practical piece of advice. Look at your own job right now. Try to identify tasks that could be enhanced by AI, and then maybe explore learning how to use those tools effectively.
So get ahead of the curve. Learn to use AI to boost your own productivity and value.
That's the idea. Turn it into a tool for yourself, if possible.
That's all really solid, actionable advice. Okay, let's try and wrap this up. If we boil down our deep dive into this Brookings report, what are the main things people should take away?
I'd say the key points are, 1, generative AI is powerful, it's evolving incredibly quickly, and it looks set to have a really significant widespread impact on the U.S. workforce.
Not just a niche tech thing.
Definitely not. 2, it presents both real opportunities, making work potentially more efficient, creative, productive, but also serious risks, especially around job automation and displacement. And these risks cut across a wider range of jobs than previous automation waves, including many higher paid roles.
Opportunities and risks, hitting a broad spectrum of jobs.
Got it.
And 3, the future isn't predetermined. How this all plays out isn't set in stone.
Right. Our choices matter.
Exactly. The decisions made by companies, by policymakers, by tech developers, and importantly, by workers themselves, all of that will shape the outcome.
So as you're listening to this, thinking about your own work, your own career path, maybe start considering how can you proactively engage with this?
Yeah, what steps can you take, not just to react, but to maybe influence how AI is used and how it shapes the future of your work, your industry?
It's a big question to chew on.
It really is. And for anyone who wants to go deeper, we definitely recommend checking out the full Brookings report. Again, it's Generative AI, the American Worker, and the Future of Work. It's got a lot more detail. Good suggestion. And maybe talk about this stuff with your colleagues, maybe even your boss.
Definitely. Sharing perspectives, understanding how others are seeing it, that's going to be really important as we all figure this out together.
Absolutely. We'd also love to hear your thoughts or questions too. What are you seeing out there related to AI and work? Thanks for joining us.